Hey everyone, welcome to Taking the Pulse, a healthcare and life sciences video podcast. I am Heather Hoops Matthews here with Maynard Nexon healthcare attorney Matthew Roberts. Matthew, good to be with you. We are coming to you live from SCbio. This is the 2024 annual conference held here in Greenville, South Carolina this year. It's a conference that's bringing together just cutting edge presentations and really regional and national life sciences leaders, and we are thrilled to welcome one of them with us today. Joining us is Sarah Glaven. She is a research biologist and assistant director of biotechnology and biomanufacturing for the White House Office of Sciences and Technology Policy. Sarah, thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
So I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, and one of the things that I always did as a child was explore nature. Spent a lot of time outside in the woods. And whenever I was looking at colleges, I was trying to figure out, what can I do? What do I want to do? You know, what's next for me in life? And that's when I first heard about environmental science. And you could travel the world and study the fruit bats in the Amazon. And all this sounded like really exciting to me. So as an 18-year-old, it merged my wanderlust with my love of nature. And it's kind of a natural fit. And so I started out as an undergrad studying environmental science, and that actually led me to spend 5 years in South Carolina at the University of South Carolina in Columbia, in the environmental health sciences department, where I got my PhD.
Right, that's nice. Good. Fellow Gamecock.
Yes. Right. Which I know you love.
Yes, I am partial. So I want to ask about this executive order that President Biden passed in 2022. And let me see if I can get this right. This is an executive order on advancing biotechnology and biomanufacturing innovation for a sustainable, safe, and secure American bioeconomy. And that, in part, established the National Biotechnology and Biomanufacturing Initiative, or NBBI. Can you discuss the vision for that initiative and what was the policy behind that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the first things I would like to say is that this bioeconomy initiative really started over a decade ago. The first time that the government sort of codified that term into policy was in the Obama administration when they issued the blueprint for the bioeconomy. That was in 2012. Okay. And through multiple administrations every administration since then, we've been bolstering this idea that we have to grow our bioeconomy and invest in biotechnology as a critical and emerging technology for the future. So it's really to make sure that the United States is staying at and maintaining its technological advantage in this space. Okay. So what the Biden administration did was recognize that not only is the bioeconomy important for all those reasons, we have this extremely robust research and development ecosystem in the United States. Think all the enabling tech for both the life sciences, health sciences, the non-health bioeconomy, as I like to say, DNA sequencing, DNA synthesis, synthetic biology, all these tools and words and phrases that you hear all the time that actually enable our tech and why we're leaders. So the Biden administration recognized with that executive order that this is an opportunity, by saying that we care about the bioeconomy, to grow our overall economy through biological processes and technologies. So the executive order really sets the stage. It calls out all of the specific areas of investment, including not only physical infrastructure that's supported through the bipartisan infrastructure law, as well as the Inflation Reduction Act, and then the R&D components that are bolstered by CHIPS and Science, but it also calls out workforce, data. You're constantly hearing about artificial intelligence and data and how important that is. It talks about biosecurity and biosafety. We need to make sure that we are leading the way and setting the norms and standards to make sure that biology is safe for everyone.
Right. So how much money is associated with that executive order in terms of a budget to push some of these initiatives?
Yeah, so that's a really that's a good question. So the executive order itself doesn't allocate specific funds, but at the time of the announcement of the executive order, the interagencies put forward their obligations to bolster all of the things that were called out in the executive order. So my home organization is the Department of Defense.
Okay.
So I came over to OSTP from the Defense Department. And so, for example, at the Defense Department had invested over $300 million in accelerating the translation of research that was happening in the laboratory to make it a real world process.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Uh,
good.
what are the challenges? So the U.S. is a leader. We hear you on that. We're focused on that. Okay, good.
Yeah.
What are the challenges that we face to make sure we stay that way?
That is an amazing question, right? So really across, okay, so taking a step back, the bioeconomy, if someone were to ask me, what is in the bioeconomy? Okay, the way to answer that is by saying, it's not really about what's in it, it's what isn't in it. So I really like to say it's bio in the economy. And so the reason I'm reiterating that is because in terms of challenges across every single sector that the bioeconomy touches, let's say it's drug manufacturing, let's say it's therapeutics, let's say it's making rubber for tires, let's say it's making fuel for jet engines. One of the major challenges we face right now is having the filling the space between that bench scale science and commercialization. So what the Biden administration is doing is making sure that we have robust investments in that space. It's called the scale up space, to bridge that gap between bench and commercialization, to crowd in private investment to build up those markets.
Wow.
So.
You mentioned earlier that the NBBI and one of the initiatives was workforce.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about how the government and private sector can work together to expand and train the U.S. workforce in this sector, in the life sciences bio sector.
Yeah, yep. So workforce is a major component. As you can imagine, it's not only a sort of a challenge for the life sciences industry, it's a challenge as we shift our manufacturing structure overall in the United States. As we're reinvesting in American manufacturing, we're having to kind of reimagine what does the next generation look like? Is it automation? Is it a skilled workforce? Is it people in the innovation spaces? No, it's all those things. Like we need a workforce that knows about all those things. The biggest challenge for the bioeconomy is that workforce not only needs to understand manufacturing, both conventional and advanced, but they also need to know a little bit about biology. So that's where we have to pull in on the bioliteracy aspect. So a big part of workforce development is just how are we incorporating an understanding of biological systems into our curriculum across all grade levels. The way the government can be partners with both academia and industry in this space is through some of the initiatives you've seen coming out of CHIPS and Science. So the Economic Development Administration, they launched tech hubs all across the country, or they designated certain sectors tech hubs. South Carolina has one in the energy space where they're sort of saying like, this region of the country has all the pieces that are needed to advance an industry into the next space. And I think what you're seeing, especially with things like SCbio, is that South Carolina has that for life sciences as well. I think I read that South Carolina is like the top destination for the life sciences in the entire country right now.
It's a tremendous amount of growth for sure.
Yes. So the partnering that you're doing with the universities, not only universities, but community colleges. I know South Carolina
Technical
has
colleges, yes.
Lots of efforts in that space where you're really creating a curriculum that offers a job immediately after someone graduates.
That's good. That's important.
Show me the job, right? That's really what it's about. Yeah.
In your role, I'm sure you have a national view.
Yeah.
Are you seeing the life sciences industry grow generally like we are here in the South? It just seems South Carolina is a leader in employment growth in this region, but just we see the life sciences industries growing at a tremendous pace.
Yeah, it is. There is growth all over the country. It's regional, and it depends on what a region might be really investing in. So for our agricultural communities, you see growth in how do you use the biomass available, whether it's corn or soybeans, as a renewable resource to create fuel. So this is the biofuels industry. That's big. And then you'll see in other parts of the countries, like South Carolina, the Northeast, the West Coast, you'll see growth in innovation in the biomedical space or therapeutic space. But I'd say it's all over the place. It's amazing. It's wonderful.
Do you think that in the bioag world, it's possible for some areas that have been focused on certain types of growth that may not be economically viable anymore to make a transition to something in that space that could benefit from the growth in the life sciences industry as we explore some of the bioag opportunities?
Yeah, I think so. It's an opportunity to do that in a way, and this comes back to sort of the next generation of manufacturing. How are we reimagining what that really looks like? So most of our economy for decades is really our manufacturing industry has been built off the movement of petroleum or natural gas across the country, and we have that infrastructure built up. For biomanufacturing, we're going to be rebuilding that to some extent. So what does that really look like for rural communities? We have to be strategic about where we're placing, where we're creating facilities so that they take advantage of those crops, but also have the infrastructure and pathways to create an economy around that.
Right. Another thing that's come up is that during the COVID experience, science became a little controversial, surprisingly, and political. How in the bio world are we trying to give people more confidence in science, since it's benefited us all over the generations, and take the politics out of it and take some of the negative aspects of, well, this is not real? How are we trying to do that from the federal government standpoint? Because I guess it's got a role in making people feel more confident in scientific discussions and policy.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think it comes back to the word I want to use again, which is bioliteracy, right? And I think it really just boils down to what you said, making people comfortable with the terms. I've been around science for a long time now, and nature for my whole life. And but sometimes when you just hear biology, you just think of something that's super complex, and you just that's all it takes is kind of a trigger, right? Biology for me, the word is physics.
Yes.
Physics,
Me too.
Don't even say quantum physics. That's just But kind of getting people to understand, and maybe this is a silly thing to say, and I'll tell you. I'll speak for myself, how I talk about bioliteracy. People think about microbes and they always think germs. Oh, I always tell them, you're covered in bacteria and they're protecting you. They're like in your gut. They're making you feel good. Like we're all living together. We're all happy. I don't know. I think if you can just kind of normalize it a little bit, like you're biology. You are biology.
Yes, communication is a huge part of this.
Yeah.
You've got to find what works, whether it be through TikTok or whatever. It's a different way to communicate is probably the strategy.
Yeah, and maybe focusing on the why it's important more than what it is.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's right. You have to make it relatable. Like, why does biomanufacturing matter to every American?
Yes.
Like, what is why do life sciences matter to every American? I don't think people fully understand that. Something that could be life-saving to them that they might take in the form of a pill or a shot was actually made the same way that beer or wine was made. Right? And they don't have a problem drinking that.
No.
Right?
No, true. Well, it's interesting at these life science conferences, the drug companies always bring a patient because the patient can give a personal story as to how whatever product helped them, medicine or whatever device, and we heard that this morning, people relate to that. They just don't know the long history that product took to get here. And that's,
But it's important for them to know that too. That drug is wonderful, but it took $14 billion in 8 years or 28 years or whatever it may be.
Yeah, it takes a long time. Yeah, and we've seen that We've seen that, and we have this opportunity now to really capitalize on, like I said, all that innovative research and development that's been done in the U.S. And if we don't, then it's gonna go somewhere else, because we really need to grab hold of it and say, we made all these discoveries, we had all these inventions. Now let's build it and make it here as well.
And I think it's positive that the federal government is reminding us we are a leader in this space. We want to continue to be a leader, and this is why we're going to push these initiatives and give you the resources to continue that.
Right.
Sarah Glaven, you are the Director of Biotechnology and Biomanufacturing for the White House Office of Sciences and Technology Policy, OSTP. Thank you for taking time to join us. I know you are a presenter here at the conference on behalf of Matthew and the whole Pulse. We're grateful for your time.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And for those of you who watched this episode today, we hope you learned a little bit more, looking from a national federal government perspective on the future, really, of the life sciences industry here in South Carolina and beyond. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time right here on Taking the Pulse, a healthcare and life sciences video podcast.